Hello guys, welcome to a new video of the first World Chess Championship of 1886. It's Wilhelm Steinitz against Johannes Zukertort, and today we're looking at game number 5. So, till now Steinitz did give away 1 or 2 games, but let's see if he can come back. Zukertort has the white pieces and he starts with d4. d5 and c4, the queen's gambit, and c6, the Slav defense. And in game number 1, Zukertort had played e3, but he actually lost that game. So now he plays knight c3, knight f3, e3, bishop f5, controlling the light squares. But by bringing out the bishop, you do weaken the b7 pawn. So now pawn takes, and queen to b3, attacking the pawn. Bishop goes back. And you could argue that black lost some tempo for no good reason. Now knight to f3, knight to c6, and knight to e5. Here you shouldn't take the knight, since after pawn takes, knight has to move and we win the central pawn. So e6 by Steinitz to solidify his center. Now bishop b5 pinning the knight. Here either bishop d7 or queen c7. Steinitz plays queen c7. Now bishop d2, bishop d6, having a double attack on the knight in which we also win the pawn. So f4 by Zukertort. Now castles and rook c1. And what do you do here as black? Well, maybe a6, but then the bishop comes to d3, in which it controls a lot of nice squares. So maybe knight to e4, but then you justify this rook c1 move, since after knight takes, pawn takes, all of a sudden we have a triple attack on this knight. So you cannot play that either. Well, Steinitz here took the knight, but that's actually not a good move, since after pawn takes, okay, white does have double pawns here, but those are central pawns which control a lot of key squares. The knight has to move to either e8 or d7, for example knight e8, and you can see that it cannot enter the game very easily. So maybe knight d7 was better to reroute the knight like this. But okay, knight to e8 and castles by Zukertort, and the rook gets activated here. And well, what do you do here? Maybe a6, bishop d3, and knight to a5, attacking the queen. But then we have this very powerful move, queen a3. And if you try to attack the queen again with the bishop, we have bishop takes h7, king takes h7, and queen takes rook. That's why queen a3 is such a strong move. Here, Steinitz played f6, which is one of the best moves to attack the center straight away. Obviously, white's not going to take, because then we help Steinitz develop his knight. Well, here the best move is actually queen c2. Since after queen c2, we have this double attack on the knight. And for example, rook to f7, we have knight a4, and we have a triple attack on the knight here. But here, Zukertort played bishop back to d3, in which we give away a lot of tension on this knight. And now rook to f7. But now Zukertort has a very powerful move. Knight takes d5. Since after pawn takes, queen takes, we gave away the knight for 2 pawns, but we have this pressure on the rook. It's pinned. If you try to exchange the queens, simply queen to b3, and the bishop will come to c4 and take the rook. That's why knight takes d5 is such a strong move here. But Zukertort doesn't find it. He plays queen to c2 with a battery on the h7 pawn, but simply f5. And after f5, Zukertort does find the best continuation, knight to e2, in which we want to bring the knight to f4. Now bishop to d7. And after bishop to d7, we dislodged this rook and queen connection. So g4 is such a strong move here. You cannot take the pawn, because then we have bishop takes, king to f8, rook takes, king takes, and queen comes in. So that's why g4 is such a strong move here. But Zukertort plays rook f2. He wants to double his rooks, but that's a bit slow. Now rook c8, having our attack on the c file, bishop to c3, and queen to b6, wanting to play knight b4. And then we cannot take it back since the rook would take our queen. So queen goes to d2, preventing the knight jumping in. But now knight to e7. And all of a sudden the knight is coming to the king's side and the bishop gets activated. So rook c to f1, doubling the rooks, but now bishop b5. We don't want to get rid of our strong bishop, so bishop goes back to b1 and queen to a6, attacking the a2 pawn, which is defended for now, but also having a battery on the knight. Now g4, but now g4 is a bit too late. Simply g6. h3, rook to c7, hoping to connect the rooks here. Now rook to e1, getting out of this battery. Knight to g7, and now the knight can move, so knight to f4. And here Steinitz has to find a certain move, and that is g5. Kick away this knight, knight goes to g2, and now knight to g6. And we are defending well here. But instead of g5, Steinitz played knight to c8. And that's a bad move. The knight is too far away from the defense now. Simply g takes. And you cannot take with the e pawn, because then we lose the d5 pawn, attacking the rook and threatening knight f6 check. But taking with the g pawn is bad as well, because then we open the g line. Now rook to g2, pinning the knight, king to h8, and king to h2. And now black's pieces are all on the queen side while we open up the g file. So Steinitz tries to bring back his pieces, queen c6 and then queen e8. But it's too late. Rook e to g1, knight to e7, hoping to bring the knight here, queen to f2, and queen to e8. And here Zukertort makes a move, which makes Steinitz resign straight away. Pause the video here and find this amazing move. Well, Zukertort played rook takes g7 and Steinitz resigned. Since after rook takes, and king takes, we have this fork here. Well, I actually want to show you an interesting line as well. Here you can also play bishop a5. Well, how does that work? Can we not just play b6? Well, then bishop to b4. You have to keep defending your king side. Bishop to d6, rook has to move. Now queen to h4, threatening taking the knight, and after rook takes, knight g6 with a fork. So you have to bring back the bishop, defend the g6 square. Look at how passive black is. Now bishop to d3, and black has no moves. If he tries to play something like b5, simply b4, a6. And now we will bring the bishop to e2 and then to h5. Black has to wait, bishop h5. And look at this position. I just wanted to show you this position, how crushing this looks. The knight will jump in and this is just beautiful. But okay, Zukertort won the game with rook takes g7. And he is up in the match 4-1. I hope you liked this video. If so, please like, subscribe or comment. And I'll see you on the next video. Bye bye.